Hey, welcome back to Engineering Improvisation. You get a first-person view today, or this video. So, for right here in front of me, I have is a get that around. Quick Fuel Technologies QFT carburetor. This is a line by Holley, and everybody has their preferences on carburetors. I happen to like these. They're honestly, as far as carburetors go, they're easy to work on. They're pretty easy to tune. It's Holley, so parts still available. They still have your typical Holley quality. So those who are fans of Holley carburetors will be fans of these too. And of course, there's Edelbrock and Weber and so many others for carburetors. Everybody has their favorites depending on application, but I find these to be really good carburetors. Now, the problem I've been having, and I had a YouTube short about it, is I was having issues on the primary side. So I have a full rebuild kit over here, but I'm really only going to be working on the primary side. And the thing with this video too is I'm just doing this kind of a quick overview of kind of going over just a few things to think about on some of these carburetors, and this will absolutely apply to Holley and most other carburetors too. They all function pretty much the same way. And just kind of talking about some of the things that I've been working on for this particular carburetor. So I knew I was having, I'm not going to go all the details, I knew I was having issues on the primary side. This is the float that was in it. If I know, you can probably hear that. So this float is full of gas. So the float, if the float's not floating, it can't do float things. So that float's dead. Now, these soldered brass floats are actually really good. Overall, they do make a plastic replacement, but I did notice that this interface on the plastic, and there's fuel safe plastic, usually polyethylene. This interface where it hit the needle and valve seat assembly was a little different, and that didn't really make me really comfortable that it was going to function properly. So I did get a new one. Yeah, wasn't that bad. And I did go ahead and transfer the pin and the spring over, which really wasn't that bad. And I can kind of redo it over right here. I mean, the spring, there's a little hole. You can see it, hole right in there. The spring, if you can see it, that little short arm. It's pretty straightforward, really. Drop that in. Yeah, I know, sorry, this might be hard to see some of this. And just kind of run your pin back in. And almost got it. Carburetors are going to be kind of finicky sometimes. Of course, off camera, this would glide. This went right in, no problem, but you know what happens. The camera's rolling. There we go. There you go, all back together. Pretty straightforward. And then that pin fits. If you can see, there's a groove down here that pin fits in. So, and again with this setup, I'm not looking to show you how to rebuild a carburetor. There are, generally speaking, there are great videos out there on how to rebuild carburetors and how they work and all those kind of things. I'm just looking at this as being supplemental to the Quick Fuel. So I noticed there wasn't a whole lot of stuff out there about Quick Fuel. And of course, if you've taken it apart, you've probably got a good idea how it all goes back together. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it really all drops in pretty easily. Now, and of course, there's the screws that are over here that hold that plate in. It's not that hard to get to. And then, while I had it apart, I did clean it up. Although I didn't have to clean much. This carburetor is actually in really good shape, so I didn't worry about that too much. But of course, I did go ahead and get the full rebuild kit. And of course, before you take your carburetor apart, be sure you have all your replacement parts to put it back together when you do, because this was the gasket that was in it, and it's a little crusty, and it did tear right here. So if you take your carburetor apart and you think you're just going to blow it apart, throw it back together with the old parts in it because all you got to do is clean it out, forget it. You will tear a gasket. You'll have leaks. It'll be a nightmare. Just don't. Just make sure you have your replacement parts on hand when you take it apart. Now, because this carburetor is in good shape and I didn't have to do much cleaning here on the primary side, the primary bowl, I'm not even going to worry about the secondary. just because, like I say, this wasn't really that much to deal with, is mainly having to replace that dump float. And in case anybody's wondering, because I know a lot of people aren't super familiar with carburetors. By the way, if you want a full video on how carburetors work and how to really rebuild them, I mean, in depth, if I remember, I'll try and put a link in the description to Junkyard Diggs. I don't know if I'll be able to find the exact video because he does several, and lots of people do carburetor rebuild videos, but his are excellent as far as really getting down and showing how it works and explaining it very, very well. So he does a very good job with that. But it's pretty easy on a 4-barrel. On a 2-barrel, everything's going through those 2 barrels, so you don't have to worry about it. But on a 4-barrel, when you see the choke butterfly, those are your primaries. In case you're ever wondering, those are your primaries. And then, in this case, vacuum secondary, so it's a vacuum rod that actuates the secondaries. And in this case, also electric choke, rather than manual. So, another thing I thought I'd go ahead and point out when I was starting to take this apart, it might be a decent video, is, and we'll see if the camera focuses. This is the needle and seat assembly that came out of it, and you can see it's in good shape. You know, why not go ahead and run it? Well, take a close look, and actually it did function. The needle, there you go. If you can see that needle and seat assembly, I did check that. You blow, well, not with this opening, but with it in the bore of the bowl, you blow air into that and you could shut the airflow off, no problem. So the needle and seat itself is fine, but you look at that O-ring and it was sealing okay, but you can see how flat that O-ring is against the body of the seat assembly. And here's a new one, and you can see that O-ring is proud of the assembly. So that tells me is there, even though this was sealing, there is a chance that down the road this is going to start leaking. And if that seal starts leaking, then you're going to have the same problem that acts like this float, the primary bowl. Because one thing I do like about the quick fuels, they do have the sight glass in them. So the bowl will overflow and flow fuel down into your intake, and you'll run rich as Elon Musk. You don't want that. So yes, you got that O-ring, and so that'll help you out there. So the other part, especially if you're going to put in that new assembly, which goes into this bore here, which, if you're familiar, has this adjuster in it to adjust the float height. But since there was a little bit of crud in the carburetor, I double checked. I had to have a set of bore brushes for my Pew Pew cleaning kit, and I was able to kind of gently get down in there and clean out that bore. So last thing you want to do is have your brand new assembly and you ram it down there and damage your O-ring, and then this thing might end up being worse than this one. That, and to make sure that O-ring doesn't get damaged on the way in, I do have a couple of needle oilers. This one I did refill at one point with engine oil, so it's definitely going to be compatible. I want to make sure I don't put anything in that's going to goof up that O-ring. So we'll put a little bit of oil in the O-ring, a little bit of oil in the bore. Of course, motor oil in with the gas, perfectly fine, and get that into place. And then, of course, new gasket, and bolt the bowl back on, and in this case, we're pretty much ready to rock. So I'm only going to use those parts. Like I say, I'm going to save the rest in case something happens, but the secondaries are working perfectly fine, so I'm just going to leave that for now, and at least I have the parts available now if I have to take the carburetor off and do the secondaries. And taking the carburetor off the car literally takes 5 minutes, so it's not a big deal. So anyway, I know that this video has been random. I covered a lot of random stuff. Oh, one quick thing while I have this bowl here is I did check the accelerator pump. That's working perfectly fine, even though I have new diaphragms. I'm just going to leave that for now too. Anyway, hope this helps. See you in the next one.